Hey, what's up everybody, this is Muse24, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the 1 to 144 scale, real grade, Aile Strike Gundam. So this is my first real grade kit that I've ever bought, and the only one that I currently have. I was a little bit late to the party getting into this line, and part of that was because of the fact that the earliest real grades, being the RX-78-2 and the Zaku-2, were ones that, while they looked cool enough, weren't designs that jumped out at me immediately. And when I'm starting to experiment, I guess, with a new line of kits, or get into a new grade of kits, I like to go with the Gundams that jump out at me as being some of my favorite designs. So with the real grade, I knew that one of the two that I would get, depending on which one came out first, would either be the Strike or the Zeta, because those are my two favorite lead mobile suit designs, well, at least as far as the lead Gundams go. Now, I don't have the Zeta yet. I might get one at some point in the real grade line, but this was sort of the same reason that I got the Master Grade Strike early on, the High Grade Strike early on when I was doing those, and in the crazy event that I ever get into the perfect grade line, the only perfect grade that I'll probably ever get would be the perfect grade Strike, because it's my favorite lead Gundam design. So that's the reason that I have the real grade Strike instead of any of the other real grade kits. Now, as you can see on the box here, the box art style for the real grade line is quite a bit different than the previous lines of kits. You know, the Master Grades tend to do some cool artistic backgrounds and stylized action sequences. The high grades are usually just a close-up of the mobile suit itself, drawn in the art style on the front. Whereas this, you have a close-up of the head of the mobile suit, showing off a bunch of the extra details, and then the full mobile suit lined up next to it, the real grade logo up in the corner, and then the name of the mobile suit there on the bottom. As we go around the rest of the box, we have kind of a look at the 1 to 144 scale inner frame, and for anyone who, I guess, kind of missed out on the whole appeal of the real grades right off the bat, the whole idea with this is that you're kind of scaling down the Master Grades into a 1 to 144 scale kit. It's not exactly like a Master Grade, but it's kind of more along those lines than a more advanced High Grade. So we got some action poses on the back there, and the thing that's really nice about these boxes is they are much more, classy of a box, if you will, because it has a black shiny bottom. And if you pop the top of the box off, you can see along the inside here that it has a listing of other versions of the Strike. There's the Master Grade and the Perfect Grade. Spin it around to the other side, you have the High Grade and the SD version. So that's kind of cool. It's certainly something different that you don't see on other grade boxes. And so then we have the manual, which follows very much the same routine as the box does there, with a close-up of the head. I really like that, though. I think it's simple, but it's effective, and I like it more than the old Master Grade manual designs. I've said a few times that I like the newer Master Grade manuals, but the old ones were just really boring, because they had sort of an outline of the head, but it wasn't very detailed. It was just sort of a sketch. So this I really like. So flipping into the manual, the first page here, pretty typical. List of the parts and runners, what we're going to be building. Then there's a look at the Strike Gundam itself, all the joints, and then we start building with the legs. Now, as you can see here, there's a lot of complexity to how the legs are built compared to a high grade. It's not nearly as complicated a build as most Master Grades nowadays, but it's definitely going to take you longer to build this than it would the 1 to 44 scale high grade counterpart. So we move on to the waist unit, the arm unit. There's a look at the phase shift armor, and it doesn't have the whole color splash page there like you would with the Master Grades. Just like a little quick insert, talks about that from the anime. Build the body unit, put the head on top, build the weapons, then it'll show you how to attach the hands, and the Aile Striker pack is the last thing that we build. There's also a look at the Striker pack system. There, I'm not actually, yeah, those are from the Master Grade versions, but there is a Skygrasper kit that you can get for the real grade version. This is the Perfect Grade one there on the bottom, but there's one for the real grade, so you can get the Sword Striker pack and Launcher Strike pack. Then you attach all the pieces of the Aile Strike pack together, put the beam sabers on top, And then the back here is a list of where all the stickers will go if you want to apply those. And it's a full color splash page, which is pretty nice there. Taking a look at the stickers themselves, there's a lot. And they're all put on one sheet. And the thing you'll notice is that these are all the clear back stickers, where you'll have your Omni logos, your GATX 105, your caution logos and that sort of thing. And then these ones are all very shiny metallic. And these are going to go on some of the joints of the kit, as well as inside the striker pack, and give it a few extra little shiny parts here and there to give it some more, I guess, flash and flare as it's on your shelf. I only use so many of them, though. And part of that's just because there's a lot of them here. If I were to go put all these on, that actually add quite a bit of extra time to the build process. Now, I used the ones that the manual told me to use as we were going along building the thing, and I think those are the ones that are going to stand out probably the most, but you do have a couple different options with the eyes. I use the ones that are the, I believe I used the ones actually that are, yeah, the shiny gold eyes, but then you have another one here that is just the black outline. So you'll have sort of the just outline there and then the clear part underneath if you want to do that instead. Now here I have the real grade and the high grade strike lined up next to each other, and you can probably notice just how big of a difference there is in the way that these kits look, even though they're both 1/144 scale versions of the same mobile suit. The real grade version has a lot more detail in terms of its little panel lines there and just all the grooves and ridges running through it. And if I pull it closer to the camera, you might also be able to tell that it has some faint color distinctions here, like this light gray on top of the skirt, and then the rest of it's more of a white color. You have dark gray running through like the crotch and the legs there that you have to paint on the high grade version. But then there's also just sort of a more mechanical look to this kit overall. I'm not positive, but I think this one was designed after the Gundam Evolve version. That's what the Perfect Grade was designed after, and this seems to share a lot of similar design traits with that version. So if it's not directly based off the Evolve version, I think it's some variation of that, or some variation of the Perfect Grade design. The high grade, you can see, obviously doesn't have nearly as much color going through it, and that's partly because it's an older kit, but also because it's a simpler design. It's based off the anime version. This is a kit that I had to do a fair amount of painting on, at least to get the gray stuff to pop out. You'll also notice that the V-fin on this one, right out of the box, is just a straight yellow, whereas that one has two pieces that are yellow and white, as it's supposed to be in the anime and the video games and everything. This one also has more of a cartoony, rounded look to its feet, to its skirts, and to the shoulders a little bit there. The proportions on the real grade are much better. The head's more clearly defined. The shoulders don't look like they're kind of encroaching there on the body. The waist is higher up on the real grade. It just looks like a better proportioned kit overall, a better proportioned version of the Strike Gundam. So here we have a couple size comparisons for the real grade Strike Gundam. First up we have the Strike Noir high grade, and this kit is definitely more of a streamlined, slim version of the Strike than the high grade version was. Part of that's because it came out later and is just a better built high grade overall. In my review I talked about how the joints of the Strike Noir are a little bit better than most of the Seed and Seed Destiny kits, and sort of for this progression into the 00 kits for the high grade line. But it's also because of how the kits were designed for Seed Stargazer. They were meant to look a little bit more realistic, a little bit more gritty, a little bit more mechanical and industrial in their design. You might notice that the feet on these two kits are very similar in terms of their being more pointed and more angular. Obviously the real grade Strike has those little divots here and there and all that, but they're a lot more similar to each other here than the high grade Strike and the real grade Strike are. You also might notice that the shoulders are a little bit more consistent between these two. They're more thin, and the angles and the dimensions are more accurate to one another. The Strike Noir obviously has more width here because of the wings and all the weapons and stuff on it, but these kits are pretty comparable in terms of the way that they look, just from a stylistic perspective. Obviously the real grade has a lot more detail on its ridges and panel lines, though. Then for another comparison, we have the high-grade Exia. And obviously these are from two very different schools of design in terms of the looks of these mobile suits. But the Exia being a little bit later high-grade than the Strike high-grade, Again, you can notice how there's much more detail in this, much more color. You didn't have to do nearly as much painting or as much panel lining to get this thing to stand out among your model kits. But you can also tell just how much more cartoony and ballooned even the shoulders on this one look. It's not as drastic as with the high-grade Strike, but it's definitely noticeable that this high-grade Exia doesn't look as sort of gritty, industrial, realistic style as the real grade Strike does. So hopefully when we get the real grade Exia, it'll kind of carry on that routine of making this look even more mechanical, more stylized. You know, maybe we'll have some little gray bits there in the shoulders and more panel lines and differentiation of colors along the legs and stuff. Anyways, everybody, that pretty much wraps up part 1 of this review. Be sure to check back for part 2, where I'll go over the posability of the real grade, the included weapons and accessories, and give my final thoughts on the kit. See you then, everybody.